Welcome to my channel where I hope you and others find the light within through channeled messages, through sharing my own human experience. I hope this message finds you when you need it the most or whenever it finds you. Today I wanted to go over something that we all go through from birth essentially, and something that is meant to teach us so much about ourselves and is designed to help us find ourselves and help us understand who we truly are. And this is relationships, whether they are, your parents, whether they're your friends, whether it's lovers. Relationships are so important because they are essentially reflections of what we were meant to learn in this lifetime. Some relationships teach us bigger lessons than others. Some relationships are meant to happen to alter our lives for the better. This is sometimes you probably hear about karmic relationships. Karmic can be good and bad. I don't actually think there is good and bad. I think it's just karmic because of the lesson that it teaches you. Sometimes there isn't a lesson. Sometimes you just needed to go through something in order to get to the next level, essentially, or to accelerate your growth. That's why you see sometimes a lot of people tend to level up after they've completed a relationship. I will say that some of the relationships that tend to leave the biggest mark are our parental relationships, and this is where most people experience the most trauma. But if you go back a few videos ago, I talked about trauma and what that means and how we can utilize what's happened to us and how we can essentially look at it as if it happened for us and not to us. So once you begin to look at it that way, you can kind of understand what the real purpose behind it was. And usually it's so that you can help others who have gone through that situation or something similar and help them kind of understand their path and get through it. So that's one form of relationships that most people tend to struggle with the most. But if we begin to look at it as this happened for me instead of to me, we can start to better understand what our mission and purpose is in this lifetime. Another form of relationship that tends to be very difficult for people are romantic relationships. These are the ones that we tend to feel the most. And these are the ones that tend to teach us the biggest lessons. But I believe romantic relationships are an opportunity for us to really understand ourselves in a much more accelerated form because we're so invested in these relationships, whether, whatever that looks like for you. But we just have to understand that romantic relationships tend to feel more. We tend to feel those more because they are a way for us to learn much deeper about ourselves through the other person. But I think these are beautiful opportunities for us to essentially love ourselves even more. I think the more relationships you have, or the deeper you go within your relationship, you tend to learn more and more about yourself, because a lot of the times when you're with someone, you tend to notice things that irritate you. You tend to notice things that you find yourself doing that you don't necessarily like. And it's in those moments that you're able to kind of take a look at what you're doing, how things are, and really say like, oh, is this me? Is this truly what I want? And at that moment, you have to make the decision of whether or not you want to continue down that path or not. And I think the only way that we're really ever going to come to those points where we're having to choose a path is typically in relationships, because in a relationship we tend to have the most life-changing moments, whether it's deciding to move in together, whether it's deciding to move to another state because your partner got a new job, or whatever the case is. These are life-changing moments that are altering your own experience, so it allows you to take a look at your experience and determine whether or not this is the experience that you want to have. And speaking of experiences, I think relationships are so amazing because they tend to enhance the experience. Imagine how boring this whole thing would be if we didn't have relationships, if we didn't have family, if we didn't have friends, if we didn't have teachers, mentors, lovers, whatever the case is. This would be a very boring experience. But I say all that to say, the whole point of this is we, again, are from source. We have our soul. Our soul has come here for a reason, and it has chosen that, whatever that reason is. And again, this is the whole point of finding the light within, so that you can get back to that reasoning and make sure that you're living out your life's purpose. But essentially, we come into this lifetime for a reason, and relationships help reflect that reason and help us find it much quicker than if we were to go through this lifetime alone, which would be really, really boring and would defeat the whole purpose. But I implore you to look at relationships as an enhancement to your experience and an acceleration to finding the light within. Thank you.